The universe is always sending you gifts, ideas, intuitive pathways. You just have to be listening.
Hello and welcome to Drafting Motherhood. I'm your host, Michaela Burnham, and today's intro may have sounded a little bit different. Well, it's because it was. Those were some inspirational words from our guest today, Constance Lewis. She is a children's book author. And when I first saw her book, Miles and the Cape of Many Feelings, it caught my eye because we write books at the Quiet Bloom Press that are all centered around social emotional development. So I was like, heck yeah, feelings. I like feelings. I like writing about feelings. This is going to be great. I can talk to another author. Maybe she can help me figure out like some publishing industry lingo stuff, right? Because I'm still learning all of this. But, per usual, our plan took a hard left from my original conversation that I thought we were going to have, because I ended up learning so much more about Constance and her book of feelings. Aside from being a children's author, Constance is also a parent coach, pediatric sleep consultant, and a fertility and postpartum coach. But before all that, she was a women's health nurse practitioner and she worked in a private OBGYN for 8 years. It wasn't until her son started experiencing medical issues that Constance decided to take a step back from the career and devote more time to her family and helping her son Miles just become his healthy self again. Our conversation is one that made me laugh, made me cry, made me reflect, and after we finished, it definitely made me hug my own kids a little bit tighter. I know I personally take my own health for granted some days. I know that every morning when I wake up, I can hear the girls' sound machines going just across the hall. I'm blurry eyed looking at the sunlight coming in through the shades. And even though I'm creaking as I get out of the bed, I'm stumbling into the kitchen, pouring myself a cup of ambition. I don't have to think about doing any of those things. I just wake up and I do it. I can trust that my body is going to get me to the kitchen and make myself some ambition. You know what I mean? But what if there was a moment that I didn't have that ability anymore? If that did happen, that would be pretty scary, right? Think of yourself just one day not being able to fully trust your body to do what it always does. And if that's scary for you, just thinking about that, imagine how you would feel if you were 4 years old and experiencing that. That's how old Miles was the first time he had a seizure, which put him in the hospital where he was unresponsive for 6 hours. As a parent, I'm sure you're listening to this, your stomach is already dropping like mine is, just repeating this. I do want to spoil this for you. This does have a very happy ending. He is a happy, healthy, thriving boy now. Um, but after hearing his story, I realized just how little I knew about childhood medical challenges and what those challenges look like for the families that are fighting for answers and searching for cures. So, get ready to hear from Constance herself, where she's going to be talking about Miles and his medical journey, as well as how Miles inspired his mom to write him his very own book. Please tell us about Miles and the colorful cape of feelings.
Oh man, this book came out of nowhere, literally. I had a dream that I was supposed to write a children's book, and I knew it was going to be about my son, but I didn't know what it was going to be about. And so, after about 3 months or so of contemplating and thinking and remembering the challenges that we had been through after he was diagnosed with epilepsy and having brain surgery, the book came to me and I wrote it in one night, and my husband helped me rhyme the book. And here we are later with Miles's book, and then another book because of my daughter, and then another book on the way. We needed to find a way for our son to learn how to communicate his feelings again without using words, and to feel brave when he had to go into a situation that was scary. And so we used capes because he loves superheroes. He loved everything about them. He dressed up, he colored, he all his birthdays were superheroes and themed. And So we thought, oh, he loves capes. Color's a great way for kids to pair them with emotions, and he can tell us how he feels with color with capes. And so that's really how the book came about.
Were you seeing that Miles was struggling a little bit with, articulating his feelings, or was it just something that you wanted to provide a tool if it got to that point?
Great question. Both, I think. Because in the beginning, he was a very emotionally intelligent, very articulate child, very, very much so that my friends were like, wow, this kid, he's smart. He can speak full on sentences at 18 months. And he was my first kid. And I was like, oh, that's not normal. They're like,
Right.
no, this is not normal. And so he was just always a very chill, cucumber kid. Like could tell us how he felt. I remember a neighborhood kid poured water on his foot when he was 2, and he looked up and he said, I didn't like that. That made me mad. As a 2-year old, like most 2-year olds
Sweet
would
boy.
scream or push, or you know what I mean. And so I was like, oh, so he was just good at it, and we taught him that early on. We did a lot of supportive modeling and teaching early on, and so we did put in the work. It wasn't like he just was like that. We put in the work. And then we noticed that as he was going through his medical journey, it became harder just because of the medications he was on, and this after the seizures, and big scary things were happening to him. And so we wanted to give him an outlet that felt right, that felt comfortable, and we wanted to give him a way to do that, and a tool, and realize that that could help others.
Are you comfortable diving into a little bit of his medical journey?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So he was born a healthy boy, and at the age of 4, he had a very big seizure while my husband and I were out of town, and my mom was there, and she had to call 911, and he was unresponsive, and it was very traumatic. And he didn't wake up for 6 hours in the hospital, and we didn't know if he was going to wake up. We didn't know how he was going to be. It was not good. And he woke up, and the doctors were like, we don't know what happened. It could have been a febrile seizure. He didn't have a fever. And they just didn't really have any answers for me. And I asked for a CT scan, and they said, no. And I'm like, why not? I asked for blood work, and they said, we don't need to. And I'm like, pushing, pushing. And finally, they got these labs. They got the CT, nothing on there, but he couldn't hardly even walk afterwards. It was just, we took him home, and just what happened. And then it just didn't feel right that it was not going to happen again. And sure enough, 3 months later, he had another seizure. And so then we started looking into why. And it took about a full year to figure out why. He had a lesion on his brain that he was born with. They call it dysplasia, cortical dysplasia, in his left temporal lobe. And it started, producing these seizures. And he was diagnosed with epilepsy. And then at the day after his kindergarten graduation, he had brain surgery to remove that entire lobe of his brain, just
Wow.
completely gone. And again, we didn't know how it was going to go. How was he going to be? Was he going to be the same? And it was just a big roller coaster journey through his process.
After the surgery, I mean, and after the initial recovery, did you see that sweet boy again, or was it still that same boy, just a little more docile? Tell me about what that looked like for you parenting.
We both felt that we lost Miles. He was one way before he started having seizures. And then while he was on medication and having seizures, he was different, as expected. The medications really change your brain
Sure.
chemistry and the seizures. And it was really heartbreaking to see. He didn't trust his body, he didn't trust himself, and he just wasn't the same. And it was very heartbreaking to see as a parent. And we knew he was frustrated on the inside. And so after he had surgery and he recovered, he started to become Miles again, and the most beautiful, resilient boy. When he stopped his medications
Mm.
a year ago, almost this August, he is back to being himself. And
Oh
it
my
is the
gosh.
most refreshing, amazing thing that you can imagine seeing. And it just fills our heart because he found trust in himself again.
Parenting a child with medical complications isn't something you typically prepare for when you're reading all the parenting books while you're pregnant and you're taking all of the birthing classes and the things you need to know. This isn't one of those things that they outline. Unless you have some type of experience with this kind of struggle if you've seen it with family members or friends, or maybe you work in a career that is directly putting you with children who have medical complications. If you don't have any of those things in your life or any experience with that, if this happens to you, you're kind of just flying blind. And you're relying on the support of families who are on that same journey, finding support groups, seeking professional counsel. But how are you supposed to navigate your own emotions during all of this as a mom? The moments when everyone is asleep and you're still awake, thinking about every possible scenario. So Constance goes on to recognize families who have had varying experiences and outcomes with parenting a child with medical challenges. She shares tips on how she stayed grounded during their journey, and she also discusses her second book of feelings, which is inspired by her daughter, Mariah. She also shares where readers can go to purchase the books, along with some final words of encouragement.
We feel so grateful and so blessed to have come on the other side, because there
Sure.
are, I want to acknowledge that there are so many parents out there that don't ever come to the other side of medical diagnoses and traumas and things, and it just breaks my heart for them, because I know how it feels, and I kind of have a survivor's guilt in a way, which again, if you know what that is, it's basically if somebody dies and you don't and you're the survivor, you have guilt. But I think it comes also in many different forms, and for me it comes that way because I feel that my child has been blessed with the ability to return to his normal self and not have medical complications, but lots of my friends that we've made along the way are not, and it just breaks my heart for them, and I wish for them to feel that on the other side one day.
When you were in the thick of this, did you have any coping strategies that were helping you just kind of go day to day? Or do you have any words of wisdom for moms who might currently be facing this kind of struggle with their own family?
Yeah, at some point during the day, finding at least 5 minutes that I could ground myself and do self care. And people always talk about, oh my gosh, people are always talking about doing self care, and I don't have any time, and it costs money, and what's this self care thing? But I really have realized that it is so important for parents, not only parents who take care of regular, for kids that aren't, medically challenged or have medical challenges or neurodivergent or however, and just parents in general. Actually, everybody in the world in general needs to have self care, because it really helps you with your own nervous system, and you're able to bring that love and that support to your child better and clearer and more calm, I think. And so I always found a 5 to 10 minute point in my day where I could do self care, whether that be a hot shower and I'm just in the shower and I'm breathing and I'm listening to music, or if I'm driving somewhere and I'm listening to a podcast that inspires me, or, everybody drives to work if they're working. So listen to that podcast, or, I would get up a few minutes early in the morning and let the sun just shine on my face, or I'd go outside and put my feet in the grass for 5 minutes and just breathe. So anybody has 5 minutes to do
Yeah,
self-care and do things like that, and I think that has been helpful, because now my self-care has gotten bigger and bigger, and through time, now that I am able to realize how important it is,
sure.
and that's been exponentially changing to my nervous system and how I support Miles and my kids now, even through the healthy times that he's having.
I want to know about your other book, Mariah and the Colorful Tutu of Feelings. And I want to
Yes.
know about your approach to this book versus the approach to writing Miles's book.
Different approach, different kid. Ding, ding, ding. Because they're not all the same. Have we learned that yet? I thought they all came out the same, and what all the parenting techniques I did worked on the same kid. Nope, that's not the case. All the personalities, all the feelings, they're all different. Miles's book is really just derived to show that we all have different feelings and it's okay to have them. So he goes throughout the book, and each day of the week, he has a friend that has a certain feeling, and he gives them a color cape to represent a feeling, and he gives them a tool to work through the feeling. So it's him giving that away. And then on the last day that he's going into brain surgery, he puts on his brave cape. And so it's a beautiful story about that. And in Mariah's book, she's my second. She's my daughter, who is 6 now. She is one of those children who have very higher peaks and have and lower valleys of feelings. And she tends to hold them in, and then it's just like boom, they come out, right? And then she's also used to be on the shyer side. She's not so much anymore. We worked on this a lot where she would hide behind my leg when we went to a party and she knew everybody there. I'm like, well, you know everybody. Why are you being so shy? And so there's just different feelings because they're a different kid. And so we really cater this book towards her feelings. So bigger feeling kids, shy kids. And we turned the book around and we had her have the feeling and her put on the tutu. And she loves tutus. So we picked tutus for her, and Miles loves superheroes. So you have to really cater to what your kid likes, and you choose the color. You let them choose the color with the feeling, and they could do whatever they like with it. And so the tutus represent a color, and she puts it on, and then she feels it makes her feel a certain way. And that's how she works through that feeling.
Oh, I love that. Did you have them help you with these colors, like, during your, writing process?
Yeah, so I let them pick the colors with the emotion. So I said,
Nice.
these are the colors. Pick out 5 or 6 different colors that you want in the book. And then they did that. And then I said, okay, here. And I picked out the emotions because I had an idea of the rhyming and the way the book that were. And I said, okay, so here's the emotions, nervous, brave, mad, sad, and courageous, whatever. I gave them the feelings. And then I said, you pick the color that goes with each one. And they did that. And some of them are pretty typical that you would think like sad is blue and, mad is red, or, what yellow is happy. So some of them are typical and other ones are interesting. And I just allowed them to do that. And I would read the book to them as I was in the writing process, and they would say, oh, I like that, or I don't like that, or I want this friend in it or that friend. And so I just kind of catered it to their liking. Colors actually directly influence our autonomic nervous system. And so they say like reds and oranges activate alertness and like arousal or anger, and other colors like blue and green trigger the parasympathetic nervous system response, which is like calm and safety. So you know how certain colors of like the spa is always blues and like colors of the water, which is seen as tranquil. And so children's nervous systems respond to color stimuli faster than they respond to verbal instructions. And so I realized that when they pick their own chosen color, and then we give them verbal reassurance like, oh, that makes sense why you picked this color with that color. They are actually able to drop their own hormonal like stress, like their cortisol levels, when you're reassuring them that they picked that color that makes sense. And so that was fascinating to me. I found in studies.
Tell us about the 3rd book that is in the works.
Oh man, well, Micah, he's my almost 3-year-old, and I have I want it to be a younger generation, like, or not generation, but a younger age. So I want each book is kind of catered to a certain age group. Miles is older, and older, I would say 3 to 10 if you have a 10-year-old that's interested. And then Mariah is more like 2 to 6, 7. And then Micah's book's going to be catered more to like 1 to 4. So it's
Okay.
going to be shorter, simpler words, simpler ways to associate feelings with color, with toys. I think toys, but I'm not sure. I'm still working on it. And
Yeah.
so hopefully by next year it will be out.
Do you
Mhm.
see in the future doing a book that maybe has more complex emotions?
I actually have toyed around and am still thinking this is going to happen. It's just the time. I want to write a parenting book, actually, about this, where not only it helps parents teach their kids emotional intelligence, but also it helps us
Yeah.
continue to grow and learn through those complex emotions and feelings, and also teenagers as well. I might add that in because I feel like young adult to adult is kind of in a mix of that, right? So that is definitely on my radar, and it's just the next project, keep working through each project that I have in mind.
That's the part that I love so much about this writing process is you get so much inspiration
Hmm.
from the everyday mundane, and
Yes.
like we said, we don't get any more time in the day, so we're not out searching for this spark. You just gotta be looking for it, and
Yeah.
sometimes it just happens right in front of you, and you're like, "Oh, that's actually a really good concept for a book. Okay, thank you for telling me that.
So we have a website. It's www.colorfulcapesoffeelings.com. And you can find, literally, you can find everything there. The books, we have apparel, we have free teacher lesson plans, we have free coloring pages, we have parent resources. I do a blog probably twice a month on there that has easy tips that you can do as parents if you're looking for ways to teach emotional intelligence or just to survive parenthood. So we have that. You can find everything there. Obviously, the books are on Amazon, but I also have an Instagram, which I'm not great at. I'm going to tell you, I have to look at it. It's called colorful_feelings.books. And that's available too if you like Instagram. So yeah, you can find me there and you can email me info@colorfulcapesofeelings.com.
What would be the most important takeaway that you hope your readers are gaining from your books?
That it's okay to have feelings and it's okay for your kids to have feelings, that it's not a horrible thing. It's not abnormal. It's not anything that's abnormal. It is completely normal. You are meant to have so many feelings throughout the day. And the more you allow and the more you normalize that, the less the child feels guilty for having those feelings. And I think that it starts with us because we are the ones that tend to get triggered or have a feeling or an emotion about our child's big feelings or how they're feeling. And I think that if you can understand why you're having a reaction or a trigger to those feelings and really mute that in a way or work through that in a way, you can better support them and allow and just I want kids to feel like having feelings is normal and it's okay. There's not something wrong with them. They don't have to suppress them, they don't have to push them down because that actually makes for worse physical health, mental health as they grow up. And so I just really want parents to take away that there are ways to teach emotional intelligence. It's actually fun and easy. And not only are they teaching their child, but they're allowing it in themselves as well. The more we teach emotional resilience in children, the how the connection piece between your partner and your kids can really improve dramatically. And it's been such a beautiful um just a beautiful thing to connect with my kids on because we teach them emotional resilience and color and play as a creative outlet for them. And so we use art and Play-Doh in our bodies and dancing, and we use play to teach emotions with color. And it's been fun. I tell parents, let your kid back out, let your inner kid back out, and that will help you with your child, with their emotions and connecting with them.
One of the things that stuck with me the most during our conversation is when Constance said that Miles stopped trusting his body. And as parents, we spend so much time teaching our kids to trust themselves, their emotions, their instincts, their voice. And sometimes life throws things at us that are completely outside of our control. But the thing that Constance did was recognize that those feelings deserved language. And she provided a tool that now allows any child to feel safe expressing those feelings. Through her books, she has created a bridge for all children to find their way back to themselves. And that is the true reason that I love writing so much, especially writing children's books. This is the heart of what I have found to be so important, and it seems like Constance has too. I started this interview hoping to gain insight from a published author, someone who was in the industry. Maybe they could give me the ins and outs a little bit. And instead, I left feeling inspired by the courage of a little boy, deeply moved by the continued advocacy of his parents. But most of all, I just felt gratitude for having this community where we can step into the life of another mom, even for a few minutes. Because we all have so much we can learn from each other. And what's the biggest way we're going to learn from each other? You already know. We just got to keep talking.